What started you reading comics?
I just sort of started reading them one day, though what really was the big influence was my uncle. He used to own a comic book shop, and as a gift to me, he gave me his collection.
So what is your opinion on comics as a medium?
As a medium, I think they are great, along with graphic novels, able to combine both the visual and the storyline aspects together.
What gravitates you more towards independent comics as opposed to the more well-known ones like Superman, X-Men?
Well, the well-known ones are, as you said, much more well-known. So, to know those comics, I don't really need to read them to know what's going on in them. Whereas the stories have been portrayed in other mediums that I think may or may not sometimes portray it even better.
How long have you been reading comics?
About 20 years.
What started you reading comics?
I saw the death of Superman advertised. It was a big news item at the time, so that kind of got me going. I went with my grandma down to the comic book store, and I've been a nerd ever since.
What attracted you to the medium?
At the time, I was only 12, so it was mainly just, remembering Super Friends and stuff like that. But as of right now, there's really nothing that you can't do with the medium. You don't need a huge budget. You can make an epic comic as long as you can draw and write.
What do you think of comics being more mainstream because of Hollywood's success with comics?
The attention of the medium is always a plus, but with the characters that they're using, especially the mainstream ones like Superman, Batman, X-Men again, it further pigeonholes those characters and restricts the creators. But at the same time, it opens up the independent market vastly because people start getting into comics. Avengers may have brought somebody into the comic book store for the first time, and instead of paying $4 for a fairly well-produced comic but standard comic, they may find an independent one that grabs their eye, and that'll start them on a path towards reading good comics.
So what would you tell someone that has these negative stereotypes and that you want to recommend a comic to?
There's a comic for everybody. A person with those connotations probably has them because of, the Super Friends, the X-Men, and the Avengers. And there's tons and tons of non-superhero type comics and just, adaptations of novels into comics and stuff like that. There's just so many different genres inside the comic genre itself that, all you have to do is go to a comic book store and just browse around, stay away from the mainstream stuff, and take a chance on something that, just appeals to your eye. How long have you been reading comics?
I've been reading comics for about 10 years.
And what started you reading comics?
My dad started me reading comics. He had quite a collection, and after a few moves, most of it got lost, but he gave me what he had left. So.
What do you think of some of the negative connotations that have plagued comics?
I think most of the negative connotations come from kind of an older view on comics, that it was for children or for nerds. But now it's not really the case anymore since they're starting to make sort of a comeback.
What do you think the impact on comics has been, considering, all the Hollywood success with comic book properties?
I think it's great in a way because it brings that new light to comics, so people are more interested in reading them. It does portray some of the more popular ones like Batman and the Avengers and things like that, but it'll make someone more likely to go into a comic shop and look around other than just completely pass by it.
How do you see comics in 10 or 20 years? What do you think the progression is going to be?
I think comics will probably keep evolving. The movies just keep getting bigger and bigger from what they once were, and I think we'll be seeing a lot more new comics and a lot more continuations of stories that are already set in place.